Ever wondered what happens when the king steps out of his blue suede shoes? Did Elvis Presley ever record songs that would make fans do a double take? The answer might shock you. When we think of Elvis, certain images come to mind: the swiveling hips, the commanding voice, the rock and roll swagger that changed music forever. But within his vast catalog of over 700 recorded songs, there exist some truly unexpected gems that show a completely different side of the king of rock and roll. These musical outliers reveal an artist willing to experiment and push boundaries beyond what his fans expected. Number 1. Song of the Shrimp, 1962. Is this really Elvis singing about the life journey of a little shrimp? You better believe it. Released on the Girls, Girls, Girls soundtrack, this bizarre narrative follows the adventures of a small crustacean from its carefree life in the ocean to its unfortunate fate on someone's dinner plate. With lyrics like, "Though he was so very small, he had big ideas," Elvis somehow manages to make you emotionally invest in the life of a shrimp. The bouncy, almost childlike melody feels more like a nursery rhyme than something from the hip swiveling rock icon. When Elvis croons about the shrimp's mother warning her baby to swim, swim, swim away from the fishing nets, you can't help but wonder if Colonel Parker accidentally switched Elvis's lyrics with those intended for a children's television show. The song features a tropical arrangement with ukulele and light percussion that sounds more like a novelty beach tune than anything resembling his usual rock and roll, gospel, or country repertoire. Recorded during what many critics consider his artistic nadir, his Hollywood years Song of the Shrimp represents everything that went wrong when Elvis's management prioritized quick movie soundtracks over meaningful artistic expression. Yet there's something endearingly weird about hearing one of the most influential voices in music history singing so earnestly about a shrimp's life philosophy. The fact that Elvis could deliver lines about a shrimp swimming to heaven with the same commitment he gave to Heartbreak Hotel shows either impressive professionalism or a complete surrender to the absurdity of his movie career. Number 2. Yoga is as Yoga Does, 1967. Did Elvis really record a song about yoga decades before it became mainstream in America? He absolutely did, though you can almost hear his eyes rolling through the recording. Featured in the film Easy Come, Easy Go, this track has Elvis paired with actress Elsa Lanchester, famous for her role as the Bride of Frankenstein, for a duet that feels more like musical theater comedy than anything in the typical Presley wheelhouse. The song pokes fun at yoga and Eastern philosophy with cringe-worthy lines like, "Yoga is as yoga does, it's not as easy as it was," and references to standing on your head and twisting your spine. With its vaudeville-style arrangement and campy delivery, this track feels worlds away from jailhouse rock or blue suede shoes. Cultural appropriation concerns aside, what makes this song so uncharacteristic isn't just its subject matter, but its presentation as a comedic novelty duet. Elvis rarely recorded proper duets throughout his career, making this silly back and forth with Lanchester particularly unusual. The song features a bizarre arrangement with sitar-like sounds, attempting to create an exotic Eastern atmosphere alongside traditional Hollywood orchestration. Recorded during a period when Elvis was growing increasingly frustrated with his movie roles, Yoga is as Yoga Does represents everything wrong with his film career. The king was forced to sing material that was beneath his talents and far removed from his musical passions. Stories from the set suggest Elvis himself found the number embarrassing. which isn't surprising considering he had previously expressed genuine interest in spiritual practices and would have preferred a more respectful approach to Eastern philosophy. Number 3. No Room to Rhumba in a Sports Car. 1963. Can you imagine Elvis singing about the practical challenges of dancing in a compact automobile? In this bizarre track from the film, Fun in Acapulco, Elvis croons about the logistical problems of performing Latin dances in small vehicles. With lyrics like, "There's no room to rumba in a sports car, too bumpy to mambo in a bus," the song tackles a problem absolutely nobody had ever considered. The track features a Latin-influenced arrangement with maracas and tropical percussion that would sound more at home in a Desi Arnaz performance than an Elvis record. What makes this song particularly uncharacteristic is its deeply silly premise combined with Elvis trying to deliver it with any semblance of seriousness. This song epitomizes the creative bankruptcy of many of Elvis's movie soundtracks. Rather than leveraging his incredible vocal talents and natural affinity for rock, gospel, and country music, his handlers forced him to record novelty songs with the thinnest of connections to movie plots. The result was tracks like this one, that feel more like parodies of Elvis than authentic expressions of his artistry. Despite the absurd premise, Elvis gives a surprisingly committed vocal performance, trotting his professionalism even when handed subpar material. The song's arrangement actually displays some of the Latin music influences that Elvis would incorporate more successfully elsewhere. But the ridiculous lyrics overshadow any musical merits. When he belts out the line, "Ain't no room to twist in a Jaguar," you can almost feel the resignation in his delivery. Number 4. Dominic the Impotent Bull. 1969. Is that really Elvis singing about a bull with performance issues? Indeed it is, and it's every bit as awkward as it sounds. This bizarre track from the film Stay Away, Joe presents the unusual tale of a stud bull named Dominic, who's failing at his primary duty on the farm. With lines like, "The poor old bull is draggin' when he ought to be a braggin'," the song tackles its peculiar subject with all the subtlety of a rodeo clown. What makes this song particularly uncharacteristic for Elvis isn't just the strange subject matter, but also its musical style. The track features a folk country arrangement with prominent acoustic guitar and harmonica that feels more like a novelty country song than anything recognizably Presley. The chorus, which repeats, "Dominic, Dominic, the impotent bull," is the sort of earworm you'd rather not have stuck in your head. The song's thinly veiled sexual innuendos make it even more uncomfortable, especially coming from an artist who, despite his provocative performance style, generally maintained a certain decorum in his actual lyrics. This track abandons that restraint for cheap laughs about animal fertility. Recorded during a period when Elvis was beginning to reassert some control over his career, just months before his triumphant 1968 comeback special, this song represents the cinematic material he was desperately trying to escape. The fact that this was recorded around the same time he was laying down powerful performances for his comeback shows the stark contrast between the material he was obligated to perform and the music he wanted to create. Number 5. He's Your Uncle, Not Your Dad. 1969. Could Elvis really have recorded a song attempting to explain the U.S. tax system? Surprisingly, yes. This bizarre track from the film The Trouble with Girls features Elvis singing about how Uncle Sam takes your money through taxes, with painfully forced rhymes like, "He doesn't give you much of a chance when he dips his fingers in your pants." This fiscal policy lesson set to music ranks among the strangest entries in the Presley catalog. The song's arrangement features a marching band style with horns and drums that feels more appropriate for a patriotic 4th of July celebration than an Elvis record. What makes this track particularly uncharacteristic is its attempt to be topical and political, territory Elvis generally avoided throughout his career. While many artists of the late 1960s were writing protest songs and commenting on social issues, Elvis typically stayed in safer emotional and romantic territory. Lyrically, the song attempts humor about tax brackets and government spending, subjects that hardly play to Elvis's strengths as a passionate interpreter of love songs and rock and roll anthems. When he sings, "He's your uncle, not your dad. He'll take everything you had," you can almost hear the disinterest in his voice, a rare occurrence for a singer known for his emotional commitment. Recorded during the same period as his American Studios sessions, which produced classics like Suspicious Minds and In the Ghetto, this song represents the bizarre mismatch between Elvis's artistic renaissance and his ongoing obligation. The contrast between this awkward tax lesson and the soulful performances he was delivering in the studio emphasizes how much his movie career had become a creative hindrance. Number 6. There's No Room to Rhumba in a Sports Car. 1963. Did Elvis really record the same ridiculous song twice? Well, sort of. While sharing a nearly identical title with the previously mentioned track from Fun in Acapulco, this is actually a different recording with slightly different lyrics, but the same preposterous premise about the spatial limitations of dancing in vehicles. What makes this version even more uncharacteristic is that it was recorded as a duet with actress Ursula Andress, whose limited vocal abilities make for an awkward pairing with Elvis. The King sounds like he's trying to carry both parts, while Andress sings her way through lines about Mambo dancing in transportation options. The arrangement features an even more pronounced Latin influence with additional percussion and brass that feels forced and inauthentic. This version emphasizes comedy over music, with sound effects and exaggerated vocalizations that make it feel more like a novelty record than anything in Elvis's core catalog. What's particularly unusual is Elvis recording essentially the same concept twice for different films, a testament to how little thought went into creating unique material for his movie soundtracks. For a performer who began his career fusing country gospel and rhythm and blues in revolutionary ways, being reduced to singing about car dancing twice represented a creative low point. Number 7. Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce. 1967. Can you believe Elvis recorded what amounts to a commercial jingle for a Florida city? In this bizarre track from Girl Happy, Elvis essentially delivers a tourism advertisement for Fort Lauderdale, listing its attractions and overtly encouraging listeners to visit during spring break. With lyrics like, "If you want to have a ball, Fort Lauderdale has got it all," the song feels more like a paid promotion than a legitimate musical endeavor. The bouncy, brassy arrangement feels like elevator music, or something you'd hear in a tourism video, rather than a song by the king of rock and roll. What makes this track particularly uncharacteristic is its transparent commercial purpose. Elvis became a musical advertisement for a vacation destination, a far cry from his revolutionary early recordings. The song's structure lacks any depth or emotional resonance, instead offering a laundry list of Fort Lauderdale attributes and activities. When Elvis sings about dancing in the sand and getting a tan, you can almost picture the tourism brochures that inspired such generic lyrics. Recorded during a period when Elvis was increasingly disenchanted with his film career, songs like this epitomize why he felt creatively stifled. Rather than challenging himself as an artist or connecting emotionally with material, he was reduced to essentially singing advertising copy set to music. Number 8. Patunia, the Gardener's Daughter, 1966. Did Elvis really sing a song with a punchline about a flower? This bizarre track from Frankie and Johnny is structured more like a musical joke than a proper song. The lyrics tell the story of Patunia, whose father warned suitors to keep their hands off his daughters. The entire song builds to the groan-worthy punchline, "Any man who picks Patunia is gonna wind up a pansy." Beyond the dated humor and questionable wordplay, what makes this song so uncharacteristic is its vaudeville structure. The arrangement features a honky-tonk piano and clarinet that evoke early 20th century music hall performances rather than anything in Elvis's usual wheelhouse. The song requires Elvis to adopt a theatrical, almost cartoony delivery that bears little resemblance to his natural singing style. Recorded during his Hollywood years, this song exemplifies the creative bankruptcy of many of his film soundtracks. Rather than proving his considerable vocal talents, songs like Patunia reduced Elvis to a musical punchline delivery system. For an artist who had previously brought raw emotion and authentic feeling to his recordings, performing novelty songs built around weak jokes represented a significant artistic compromise. Despite the subpar material, Elvis's vocal commitment remains professional, though you can detect a certain emotional distance, a hallmark of many of his movie recordings during this period. The contrast between this silly novelty number and the passionate performances of his early career or his later comeback highlights how far he had strayed from his artistic roots. Number 9. Signs of the Zodiac, 1971. Ever wondered what Elvis thought about astrology? Neither had his fans, but they got an answer anyway with this unusual spoken word recording. Released on the album Elvis Now, this track features Elvis briefly discussing each zodiac sign while ethereal, New Age style music plays in the background. It's less a song and more an astrological reading set to atmospheric sounds. What makes this recording particularly uncharacteristic is its complete absence of singing. Known for his distinctive voice and emotional vocal delivery, Elvis spends the entire track speaking rather than singing. Listing traits of astrological signs like giminous are usually versatile and intellectual over spacey keyboard effects. For a performer whose identity was built around his unique singing voice, choosing to simply speak about astrology represents a significant departure. The track also stands out for its embrace of the mystical and astrological subject matter. Elvis rarely explored in his music. While he had personal interests in spirituality and mysticism, these rarely made their way into his commercial recordings so explicitly. The dreamlike background music bears little resemblance to the rock, country, gospel, or ballad styles that defined most of his career. Recorded during a period when Elvis was enjoying more creative freedom in his post-movie career. Signs of the Zodiac represents an odd creative choice that feels more like a random personal indulgence than a strategic artistic statement. The fact that this peculiar spoken word astrology lesson was released on a major Elvis album rather than as a curiosity on a compilation shows how even Elvis's record company sometimes struggled to curate his output effectively. Number 10. Old Macdonald Had a Farm, 1967. Did the king of rock and roll really record a children's nursery rhyme? He certainly did. And the result is as incongruous as you might imagine. Featured in the film Double Trouble, Elvis's version of Old Macdonald Had a Farm transforms the childhood classic into a rock and roll number with electric guitars and a driving beat. Despite the rock arrangement, there's no escaping the inherent silliness of a grown man singing A-I-E-I-O with animal sounds. What makes this track particularly uncharacteristic isn't just the children's song source material, but the awkward attempts to make it seem edgy and adult. The arrangement tries to disguise the nursery rhyme nature with rock instrumentation, but the combination only emphasizes the mismatch between performer and material. When Elvis belts out with a quack quack here and a quack quack there, no amount of electric guitar can make it feel appropriate for the man who scandalized 1950s America with his provocative performances. The recording quality and production are actually quite good. A testament to the professional studios and musicians Elvis worked with even during his least inspired period. This makes the song even more jarring. High-quality production and performance in service of having Elvis Presley make barnyard animal sounds. Recorded during the final years of his movie career, Old Macdonald represents everything wrong with how Elvis was managed and marketed during this period. Rather than leveraging his natural talents and artistic instincts, his handlers repeatedly placed him in situations that undermined his credibility as a serious musical artist. For the man who helped invent rock and roll to be reduced to singing nursery rhymes shows how far he had strayed from his groundbreaking origins. So what do these uncharacteristic songs tell us about Elvis? Is there more to discover beyond the hits we all know?